Well, more than a year after President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government came to power, it's still struggling to bring Zimbabwe back from the brink. And severe droughts have only worsened conditions for the agriculture-based economy. The World Bank expects the economy to shrink by 7.5% this year. Currency depreciation and food shortages have already driven a 300% hike in inflation. And the World Food Program says 8.5 million people, more than half of Zimbabwe's population, are in need of food assistance. Strapped for cash, the government is unable to raise salaries or increase spending on social services and health care. On Wednesday, many doctors went on strike demanding higher pay and better facilities. Columbus Mavhunga has more from Harare.
The doctors and nurses are saying their demands are simple and achievable. They want their salaries reviewed in conformity with the soaring inflation and also have clinics and hospitals equipped with modern equipment. They are saying in some cases they operate in conditions where there's no running water, making it difficult and hazardous to them and their patients.
We are doing this because we feel for our patients. Because the current state of affairs is such that because of the incapacitation of the hospitals, even if patients come there, we'll offer them a substandard service, which will end up creating more mortalities and much more morbidity than is supposed to happen. So we are saying to our patients, we love you, we're actually doing this for you. Once the hospitals are fully functional again, we can meet there and we can provide an excellent service.
These doctors and nurses, for several occasions, they've held marches, protesters marched to the parliament and marched to President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government, but nothing so far has borne fruit. They are digging in, but the government is also digging in. They are saying they will not go back to work until their salaries have been reviewed and their working conditions have improved.
Wilf Mbanga joins me now live from Johannesburg. He's the founder and editor of news outlet Zimbabwean. Thank you for joining us on the program. Zimbabwe has faced crisis after crisis. The country just can't catch a break. The government blames international sanctions, but what are the main factors at play here?
Largely corruption, mismanagement, and government which doesn't really give a damn, has got the wrong priorities, and they just haven't got a clue about even their figures. The figures that they give in their budgets, the annual budget, are even wrong, and they've even annoyed their donors, like the Chinese and the Americans, who have been giving them money and they can't account for it.
So that said, when Robert Mugabe was removed from office at the end of 2017, the annual rate of inflation was around 5%, and inflation remained low until the end of 2018, but then rose sharply to the first half of this year, reaching an annualized rate of 176% in June. So what happened?
Well, it's actually 500% at the moment. The people, I think, running our finances don't seem to know what they're doing. We don't seem to have priorities, right. But what needs to be done? They are spending money on unnecessary things. For example, on health, they are not paying the doctors, with livable wage. They are spending a lot of money sending all the senior people in government outside the country for medical attention. They're giving chiefs, the traditional leaders, brand new 4x4s when doctors can't afford to buy even a simple car. It's just a question of priorities. We also have at the moment, Parliament is being asked to condone $9 billion US, which has been misspent. The government can't account for it. They don't know what they've spent it on. and they want Parliament to condone that expenditure.
The crisis has reached a critical stage. There were a report says 60% of people are failing to meet basic food needs, that Zimbabwe is facing man-made starvation with 8 million people to be affected by the end of the year. And even worse, economists and analysts say the crisis will persist for a long time to come, that Zimbabweans may have to become accustomed to life without essentials such as electricity, food, and healthcare. So how can Zimbabweans survive this crisis if the government can't manage to provide them with these essentials?
Well, we definitely need outside help. Zimbabwe, which used to be a breadbasket of Southern Africa, is now a basket case. We can't afford to feed ourselves. We are now totally dependent on food aid. And the United Nations announced recently that it was, about 2/3 of Zimbabweans now need food aid. We're now getting food from other countries, whereas we've got enough land to grow all these foods and even more to export. We're not able to do that. We have not maintained our electricity supply organization. And now we are totally dependent on other countries in the region to supply us with the energy. And most people don't have power for up to 18 hours a day. So companies are closing down because they've got no power.
Right. It's a very dire situation, and unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Wilf Mbanga joining us from Johannesburg.